What's up, MetaNerdz? This video is all about the Variable Geometry Self-Propelled Battle Droid, Mark I, often referred to as the Vulture-droid, and surprisingly never called the VGS-PD-BD Mk1. The main droid fighter of the Confederacy of Independence Systems was manufactured by one of the most obscure species in Star Wars, the fanatical insects called the Zychar, whose society revolved around a religious cult of starship production. The four-legged bugs felt that the best way to experience the divine was to craft vessels made for traveling the stars, and they actually produced tons of ships and droids used by the CIS, including the Sheathipede, C-9979, and the Hailfire tank, just to name a few. Because of the aforementioned variable geometry, the length and height of this ship will change relative to whether it's walking or flying, so I'll just do this comparison in flight mode. Its length of 6.96 meters, or 23 feet, is about half the length of the X-Wing, and about a baby Jawa shorter than the TIE Fighter, while its height of 1.86 meters made it shorter than a Wookiee, and about half the height of the ARC-170. At a width of 4.75 meters, or 16 feet, it was thinner than the TIE Fighter, and around 1/4 the Y-Wing. Using our standard unit of the Imperial I-class Star Destroyer, you could line up 230 Vulture droids from bow to thruster, and they would actually be smaller than some of the ISD's heavy turbo laser batteries. And for some comparisons to our world, it was about 1.5 Honda Civics long, with a similar height, and about 2 Civics across. Now what is really impressive is that you got a ship with an incredibly small profile, but that had an impressive top atmospheric speed of 1,200 kilometers per hour, or 746 miles per hour, making it tied with the TIE Fighter, and faster than the ARC-170 and the X-Wing, but it also packed an impressive armament. There are 2 different versions, with some having 4 laser cannons, a pair on each wing, while these openings here could be used for proton torpedoes, but others had systems in which the laser cannon or torpedoes could rotate into place when needed. And what's more, this fast, strong, small fighter only cost 19,000 credits, 1/3 the cost of a TIE, and 1/7 the cost of the X-Wing and ARC-170. By taking a look inside of this droid, we can see how this section above the laser cannons contains a series of power cells and converters, but if we move down, we can see a small repulsor lift array that helped to both reduce the effects of a hard landing and push this craft up when it went from walking mode into flight. We can see the pneumatic system that also aided in this transition, along with these scissor action tips that would extend when walking and help it navigate uneven terrain. It is easy to focus on how these nimble fighters were able to rip apart Republic ships, but often overlooked is how these leg features and its walking mode allowed the CIS to use this as a sort of tank or sentry in places where civilians might need some reconditioning. Though the wing-mounted laser cannons would be rendered useless, the body was angled so that no matter the variant, you could fire either your laser cannons or proton torpedoes into groups of people supporting the Republic. Creating this type of ship shows a military philosophy held by the CIS, which thought to use overwhelming numbers and have units that were capable of things that organics could not accomplish, like some of the features of battle droids, but also a maneuverability that can only be achieved with droid fighters. Vultures, hyenas, and tri-droids were all able to handle G-forces that would cause organics to pass out, while also having quicker reaction times. Taking a look into this main body, we can see the head is full of sensors that allow this droid to see in ways a human could not, picking up magnetic signatures and infrared, and passing it straight into its droid brain, instead of something like an ARC-170, which might also be able to collect this data through sensors, but could only relay this information to its organic pilot. In order to take advantage of these droid features, we can see that it used electromagnetic vectoring in order to direct the flow of ions coming from its engine. To generate all this power, the Vulture had solid fuel slugs, something we see in other CIS ships, instead of the more commonly used Tabana gas. Using this solid fuel, they were able to get greater energy output in a shorter time, while also taking up less space. Excellent Zychar design allowed these slugs to be replaced incredibly fast, something necessary since the Vulture droid only had a flight time of 35 minutes. As for its history, the Trade Federation were the first to purchase the Vulture droid, loving the fact that these droids could escort shipments through hyperspace by simply attaching themselves to the hull of otherwise defenseless transports. When it came to the Lucrehulk, the standard complement would be 1,500 Vulture-droids, which could just attach themselves to the exterior, something the battlecruiser's designers planned for, putting in energy grids that could charge the Vultures without them having to take up space in the hangar bay. Originally, these were all governed by those Lucrehulks, also referred to as the droid control ships, having a similar relationship to the B-1 battle droids, but the loss at Naboo would come to be a valuable lesson for the CIS, which would work in droid brains, that allowed these to operate independently. But interestingly, they also had the ability to communicate with each other, which would often sound like an electronic chattering. Vulture droids would remain a staple of the CIS war effort, seen at nearly every major engagement, with many CIS tacticians realizing that it was sometimes better to have the Vultures just smash into the enemy's capital ships, instead of coming back to refuel. Their legacy would actually outlive the CIS, as many were picked up by rebel cells, and used against the Empire, most notably with the Free Ryloth movement, and Birch Teller's rebel cell. Cham Syndulla's group was able to use them in his assassination plot against Vader and Palpatine, which, though unsuccessful, did result in the destruction of the Star Destroyer Perilous. Thrawn would face them after they were given to Birch Teller's rebels by Vice Admiral Dodd Rancet, who was attempting to eliminate his rival, Moff Williff Tarkin. But the very last time we see them is around 60 years after their introduction to the galaxy, when Vultures were being used as security droids by the wealthy houses on Cato Neimoidia. So that's it for their history, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. Originally, these were to be piloted by B-1s, and you can actually do this in the original Battlefront video games, though this was really just because it was necessary for the game's mechanics. This is one of the few ships to have its dimensions changed in canon, doubling it in size, but I think I agree more with canon on this one, as the Legends would have the Vulture droid around the length and height of a Fiat 500, and only about 1.5 Wookiees across. And many have compared this to the Japanese Type 0, a fast, maneuverable plane that was mass-produced, and which were sometimes crashed into enemy capital ships. So that's it for the Vulture droid. If you want to connect with us, help support this channel, or get your own copies of the reference material used in this video, be sure to check out the description down below. But most important of all, remember, if you ever feel divinely inspired by a Star Wars ship, you might be a Zychar, and the Force will be with you, always.